Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this wonderful Tuesday. I was just talking about how after a 3-day weekend, it's nice to kind of get back into the fray. Actually, Walt and I were chatting about not having any sports on Sunday anymore. It's kind of like, what do we do with our lives? So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much. We're seeing some more attendees pour in. We're going to go ahead and get started here. Good morning again. My name is Will Ochoa. I'm the Vice President of Membership. We also cover events. I want to welcome you this morning to our roundtable with our coaches. Today we have Walt and Jill, and you'll be hearing from them a little bit later. And we are joined by Mr. Rob Arnall. And then Anna's over there in the wings hiding as well. Nonetheless, we're all here to say hi. Today, we're just going to talk about the overview of the goals coaching program, dive into a little bit about what the goals coaching program is individually with the coaches, and then wrap it up with Q&A. So if there's any questions that you want answered, please feel free to use the Q&A feature found at the bottom or the top of your Zoom toolbar. Once you ask those questions, it'll pop up on my screen and I'll go ahead and ask the coaches. You can also share them in chat. That one may not be seen just because it's on a different window. So if you can, please use the Q&A. That would be amazing. This whole process for goals coaching started, I want to say now, 1.5 years ago. We were talking about, US Bank was talking to us about the goals coaching program and invited me to be part of the process. And I love sharing the story, and you guys have probably heard it 1,000 times if you've heard me talk about goals coaching. But when I first walked into the bank, I'm thinking, okay, here we go. They're going to talk to me about my finances or ask me to open up a loan or something along those lines. Something uncomfortable that most people are like, I'll just go online for. But I got to tell you, I was pleasantly surprised when I walked in. Nicole's my coach, who's not here on the call today, but you'll see a picture of her here soon. And what I really loved about it was that when I first walked in, I was greeted with about 10 to 15 goals. And I remember looking at the goals, and they were more than just financial. They had everything to do with your personal life. Did you want to build on family? Did you want to pursue a passion? And the goals that I chose, one of them was pretty much just towards my professional career. And then the other ones were pursuing a passion. And I got to tell you, I spoke probably about pursuing a passion the entire time. I didn't even focus on the other things that I chose. And what I realized is that it was the first time that I had admitted to myself that the passion that I was pursuing is actually a dream that I want to achieve. And what was really incredible about that is that it put me on this path that I'm on now that would not have happened had I not met with a coach. So I'm happy you're all here, and that's kind of my story to get us started. But I want to go ahead and introduce the the coaches for today. I want to go ahead and get started with Jill. Hi, Jill.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well.
Right. So I'm Jill Ross. My background includes time in the Navy, several years in the Navy. Once I got out, I went into healthcare in the clinical side for several years before I moved into the business side of it. I'm eventually as an HR director and then a project manager before I moved to the bank.
Thanks, Jill. Thank you for that. Walt, you're up next.
Awesome. Will, good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Walt Carey, one of the 4 coaches assigned to the Growth and Development Center there at Vegas Chamber. I am a retired active duty service member in the Air Force after 20 years. Soon after retirement, I made the transition into B2B business-to-business coaching and consulting, where I did that right before joining the bank in October of 2019. It's a pleasure to be with you guys today.
Awesome. Thanks, Walt. And then, of course, Rob, you're on camera, so you have to say something. Rob?
I'm just happy to be here and offer my support. We're so excited to be, to be able to partner with the Chamber regarding our amazing program, and we're here to change lives. So I think at the end of the day, we're here to help you create a plan for the life you want. So without further ado, I'd love to, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Rob. So I want to get us started real quick on a polling question. So the first question that you're going to get, actually, it's 2 questions here. But go ahead and just focus on the first question. We'll revisit the second question here. But the first question is, have you ever had an experience with a coach in your life? Go ahead and take, let's say, about 15, 20 seconds and go ahead and vote on whether or not you've had experience with a coach, rather. All right. Votes coming in. About 5 more seconds here. I feel like I need music at this point, right?
I could do that.
All righty. So interestingly enough, 67% of our attendees today have had an experience with a coach, and 33%, excuse me, have said they haven't. So what's really interesting about this is, excuse me, is that the goals coaching is for everybody. So I want to go ahead and actually show our coaches that are here. And today you met Jill and Walt, but we also have Nicole and Anna. What's great about these 4 individuals is that they come from a very diverse background. You know, as you heard from both Walt and Jill, they come from the military side, which we'll dig in here in just a second. But you see with Nicole, she was an educator, and then Anna has an experience in coaching and small business development. So regardless of who you go with, every person has a unique set of skills. So with that, Jill, let's talk about your unique set of skills. Your experience in the military and HR and project managing. How's that influenced so far your coaching experience with your clients?
It actually has been the most interesting is I get most people that come to me for the build my career goal. For some reason, people just gravitate toward that. And so the background that I have really works well because I spend a lot of time with people helping build their resumes, helping build their personal branding, but also helping them with their time management and getting their personal projects together in order to make that career goal.
That's great. And you talk about the time management piece. You know, last year with the majority of the world working from home, I think a lot of us have to revisit our time management skills. I know I was making a joke to one of my colleagues last week that I started doing in-person meetings again, and you know, clearly safely. But my emails haven't reflected in-person meetings, so I'll come back and there's about a 50 emails in an hour span, and people are waiting for a response. So I definitely should be seeing you about my time management skills too. So thank you, Joe. Walt, so you also have a military career. I think you said you had a 20-year military career. And also you have some B2B experience. I'm not sure if you covered that, but I know that about you, that you participate in other groups like Vistage type, I should say. So how has that, how have those experiences benefit you as a coach?
Great question, Will. I'll start with the military experience in itself. And yes, 20 years active duty has definitely taught me the first thing that I leverage in conversations with clients is accountability. Also in the military, I was able to understand the science of coaching, that the value add is in the questions we ask, not the delivery of, you know, answer, if you will. The adage I like to use, and I joke around with Jill, is, you know, in coaching, we teach the client how to fish. A consultant gives the fish, if you will. Of course, it's quite naturally, when I made the shift and transition career-wise into B2B coaching consulting, the added value now in my position that I'm in with the bank, it's definitely helped me understand the dialect of business, to understand, again, the questions to ask said business owner and their employees relative to how in that dichotomy itself, we can merge and marry, as you highlighted early on, the financial component to their goals to the human component, which is, you know, just as essential.
Now, you know what, you're 100% correct. When you talk about the CEO portion, you know, the saying of it's lonely at the top is absolutely real, right? You work with a lot of CEOs, and Jill, I know you do too. And a lot of times they don't have anyone else to really bounce anything off of. So even having a coach in that scenario is extremely important. So let's talk about goals coaching. So we talked to, you know, I think people can kind of piece it together, but I want to specifically talk and look at some of the goals. As I said, when I walked in, I saw this list of 15 goals, and I chose the ones that that I really kind of gravitated towards, and I was really surprised. But Jill, I want you to kind of explain, what is goals coaching?
It's unique and it's individualized to each person, and everything is for us customizable. So for example, we get, you know, like I said earlier, I get those people that want to build my career. That's their goal. And for some people, that building my career is starting out with things like their resume, the brand. For other people, it's saying, I'm already 3 steps into my career. Now I need to take that next step. And that next step for me means a new title, a new pay grade, something to that effect. So goals coaching is really digging into what that person wants and how we can individualize it to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at it too, the building career, that's I think that's one of the ones I chose. I spoke about it maybe for like 2 minutes. But some of the other ones on there, like prepare for the unexpected, pursue a passion. Even there was one that says grow my family. That was something I have never seen from a bank, to talk about growing the family, right? I mean, that's very personal, but there's a lot of things that really can be unpacked from there. So Walt, what makes this program different? Kind of thinking about your experience that you've had in previous roles, like again with the B2B things that you do, what makes this different than anything else?
Well, what makes it different to me through my lens is the relationship itself is not transactional in a sense. You don't just, meet with a Walter, hand me your P&L or your balance sheet, we take a look at it, I do my thing and you go, right? It's more, again, centric to the human component. And we don't just help the client or customer identify their goals. As Jill alluded to, we help them create that personalized strategic plan, the necessary milestones that he or she needs to create in order to achieve their goals. And most importantly, as you mentioned, with the conversations that Jill and I have with CEOs, it's deeper than just the sounding board itself. We help that individual, whether you're that millennial at one end of the spectrum or said CEO at the other, we help you see that forest through the trees. And it's amazing what we're doing. And we're so excited. And it's truly a disruption that, moving forward, that we are seeing across the board in the banking space.
That's great. Thank you, Walt. We got a question here. Just want to ask it to everyone. The question is, how long does a coaching session last? It's a good question.
Coaching sessions last 45 minutes to an hour. And then we move on to sessions 2, sessions 3, sessions accountability, all of that. But the initial is about 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay. And then usually the other frequently asked question here, I'm just going to add on to this one, to the one that this person asked. So, and how often do you meet, and how long in terms of like period of time, like over a month?
Well, that goes back to that customizable piece. So we have, I personally have clients that I meet after the session 1, we meet once a week for several months, and then they're settled. I have other clients I meet once a quarter, sometimes once a month. It just depends on the client.
Got it. So, Jill, I have a question for you in terms of how it pertains to members. So at the Chamber, we always preach that any of the benefits that come with the membership, unless specifically stated, are open to everyone at their organization. Does the same apply to goals coaching?
Absolutely. It's for the owner and their employees.
Awesome. And I want to make sure that everyone understands that it is for everyone there. So even if you are not somebody in leadership at your organization, for those of you that are attending, please send this information over to whomever needs to see this at your organization. This is a wonderful service that you need to take part of, and everybody else. There's athletes have coaches. Everybody has coaches. Every person needs a coach. All right, so let's go through here really quickly. So talk to me, Walt, about how somebody gets ready to meet with a coach. So they say, okay, I'm ready, let's do this. What do they do?
So yeah, we sit down, and as you can imagine right now in the current unprecedented times that we're in, we're doing everything majority virtually. So what I typically do, and I know Jill does the same, is we send some collateral pieces over just to kind of get the thought process going. To your point that you had mentioned in your experience itself was like, wow, I didn't realize I could discuss with a coach this particular goal, pursue a passion. And again, it's fueled by the old Simon Sinek saying, which is, starting with your why and identifying that. So we sit down with a client, we cover the 15 goals, which have now expanded to 18, believe it or not, Will. And we talk about those, and we talk, again, not just about the why, but if there's a financial component, we identify that, we talk further about that. But we also echo that just because you are speaking to a goals coach from various backgrounds tied and associated and connected to the bank, we don't necessarily have to have a financial component to 100% of the goals you identify. So once we get that started, we create that timeline, as Jill mentioned. The customer client at the conclusion of the 45 minutes to an hour session, first session, leaves with something tangible, leaves with a goal summary report, leaves with something that they can say, wow, this is what I talked to my coach about. They can put it on the refrigerator, put it in their, safe, or in that one drawer that we all have in our kitchen, right? And keep it there. What's great is, secondly, followed by that, it's an option to the client to decide whether he or she wants to move forward with that strategic plan. And quite naturally, in order to achieve that strategic plan, there's some information that we as coaches have to collect relative to their finances and such. But again, we also echo in the conversation that this is optional. And because we ask about your finances, it's not anchored or centered to a question of, from Walt or any of the coaches, centered around product or service in that discussion itself.
Yeah, and you know what? Let's talk a little bit about those, some of those discussions. And actually, this question gives a nice segue into that. There's a question that came in that says, I'm curious if there have been recurring topics amongst small business owner clients that you've seen.
For me, I'm working with a couple of people from the chamber, and the thing that I'm seeing over and over again is how do I manage my time and market my business during COVID when I can't physically get out to do it? So we're spending a lot of time being very creative.
That's a great thing. You're absolutely right. How do you continue to get it out and market at the same time, or run it and market? Absolutely. Thank you. Walt, do you want to add anything?
I definitely want to echo what my colleague Jill just said. Helping the client, the CEO or employee realize that their most precious commodity is just that, their time. At the end of the day, you don't get that time back. So how can we effectively take a look and audit the time of your day, the 24 hours that we all get, and best maximize said time and put you in a position to be successful, whether again you are a CEO or an employee of an organization.
I'm also curious how many times you heard the word pivot last year.
Oh my God. If I could get $1, right? But it's definitely a valid point, because people, employees and business owners are reinventing themselves during these unprecedented times and making those necessary pivots, whether they be from the top at the CEO level or respectfully at the bottom as an employee, if you will.
Absolutely. So I want you to kind of think about, and we're going to share maybe some experiences you've had. It's been now almost a year, right? For goals coaching and for both of you. I'm curious. I'd love to hear some experiences you've had. Jill, if you wouldn't mind, we'll start with you.
One of my favorites actually comes from a client that I got through the chamber. She came to me and she's transitioning out of the military. She was somebody who was featured with you guys in your magazine. So she's transitioning out of the military. And one of the things I really enjoyed was I worked with her on a couple of goals that had a financial component. It was, saving for the unexpected, saving for something big. But of course, her biggest was her career and how does she transition and so on and so forth. And one thing that she didn't understand, because she had a few months left to get out, was she had a couple of very large, well-known companies scouting her. And she's like, but I don't get out for like 5 months, so I'm just going to let those go. Like, no. We need to work on it. We need to keep those relationships, build those relationships. And so for her, it worked out great. I helped her through that, her branding, her relationships, and she ended up taking one of the jobs, which I like to tell that story because it kind of goes with what we're doing, what I'm seeing with some of the new chamber business owners that are coming in for goals coaching now, is they're kind of saying the same thing. Well, it's COVID, I can't get out, I can't do this. So I'm going to kind of put that on the back burner, where I've had to say, no, we've got to keep these relationships built. We've got to keep them going. It goes to that marketing that you want to do so that you're prepared and you can move forward after COVID.
That's a great story. Thank you, Jill. And a great example of how somebody can come to you and kind of just seek that advice and get held accountable. I think ultimately is the accountability piece, because I'm sure during that session, that person wanted to table a few things, as you kind of were saying. You're like, no, we got to keep A, B, C, D, E, right? And that's exactly what a good coach does. Thank you, Jill. Walt, tell me about an experience you got.
Yeah, for me, it was a business owner that I've been working with since the beginning, going back to September when we first rolled out this initiative and strategic partnership. Twofold. His non-financial goal was just managing his time, as we talked about. And he and I, as you can imagine, echoed the importance of that most precious commodity that he has. And we joked about, it's not really time management, it's more so self-management. How can he manage himself? How can he, empower, his chief operating officer to take a little bit of the workload off of his shoulders and trust, but also verify, that the work is also getting done. And then quite naturally, that particular goal in itself, as you can imagine, when he hires and expands and brings on people, then that financial component will then eventually unfold. But at the moment, in the beginning of the conversation, it was definitely a non-financial vision of his. His second financial component or correlated goal was expansion. And his question was, Walt, how can I expand during these unprecedented times, during COVID? So we talked about possibilities. Again, I didn't lead with solutions. I led with asking him those questions to get him thinking, to get him to kind of see the landscape of his industry through the forest and take a step back. And when I asked him several questions relative to his business, and he uncovered and identified an opportunity to perhaps franchise what he's doing. And that, of course, dovetails quite naturally into the expansion in various other states and replicate what he's doing here successfully in Las Vegas, or in the state of Nevada, in 3 other markets. So it's been great.
I think it's great that people always have kind of a financial and non-financial, right? Because even on the non-financial, it's probably things that they don't necessarily say out loud, or they don't have someone else to kind of bounce the idea off of. So It's great to hear. So we got a few questions. I'll take this one. How much does this cost? Nothing. It doesn't cost anything but your time and your energy to meet with the coaches. And of course, your stake in it is just to follow the goals that you set for yourself and to hold yourself accountable, because I know definitely the coaches will. But this next question, I'm going to open it up to Walt and Jill both. This person says that they're a very private person. How do the coaches help them share info they need to move them towards their goals? In other words, this person may need some extra prying just to get info out. So how would you approach somebody like this? How can you help someone like this?
Walt, you want to go first?
I can start with that one. I get that asked all the time, and it's definitely a caveat that Jill, myself, and the other coaches position up front. Everything we discuss in this setting, whether it's 15-minute introductory call or an hour or 90 minutes, it's 100% confidential. And through that journey, as Jill mentioned earlier, we meet the client wherever he or she is at, meaning wherever they're at in their goals discovery process, whether it's the business side of things or the personal side of things. And if we do meet them at a point or a junction in the journey to where we identify that it would add value to them achieving their goal, if we bring in a subject matter expert like Rob and his amazing team, we do so, but we also do so when the client is ready and with their permission. And that's where we holistically, as a bank, and us 3 individuals that you see right here, Rob, myself, and Jill, holistically empower the business owner, the employee, the millennial, the baby boomer. It doesn't matter who you are.
That's great.
I echo all of that. I think the only thing that I would add on, and I know Walter does this as well as the other coaches and myself, just because we have a prescribed session 1 that's 45 minutes or that hour long that we need to meet with somebody, doesn't mean that that's where it ends. Going back to everything is customizable. I have a few clients that I work with, one in particular who was very, very private at the beginning. It actually took 3 sessions to get everything opened up and ready to go, and for her to feel comfortable and trusting. So we do have that option as well.
Yeah. And I will say to the person that submitted this question, I'm a very, very private person, believe it or not. And what I talked about in pursuing a passion, I had never really said out loud before. My coach, Nicole, made me feel very comfortable. Excuse me. I'll break it up. No, I just had to clear my throat. My coach Nicole made me feel very comfortable and really saw that I opened up and was very emotional about what that passion was. And so she was able to ask questions very respectfully and get me to open up more. So it's a very comfortable environment. So you don't have to worry about going in there and the other person passing judgment. They're there to absolutely help you. As a reminder, you can submit your questions in Q&A. We're actually getting close to the end here with the Q&A piece. Please make sure to submit all of your questions via the Q&A button. Most of you have, so thank you so much. While we wait for some more questions to come in, Jill, can you take us through how somebody is ready, how somebody would schedule a meeting with you or anyone?
Yeah, actually, there's a QR code that you've got on the screen right now that'll take you right to our splash page if you want to click on that, and you can choose from a coach that's there. So we've got the 4 of us that are with the chamber, but there are 3 more coaches as well available if you start reading backgrounds and bios there and decide you don't want to work with one of the 4 of us.
That's great. And actually, instead of clicking, if you pull up your camera on your phone and then you just hover your phone over the QR code, it'll take you directly to that landing page. And unfortunately, it's not clickable on through the Zoom screen share. Whoops! I just clicked to meet the goal coach.
Oops, I meant sorry.
That's okay, no worries. I just don't want anyone to click the QR code. But nonetheless, if you use your phone and scan over it with the camera app, you can go ahead and schedule that. We had another question come in. This actually is a question that gets asked very frequently. So thank you to the person that's asking us. What if I find my coach and I aren't a great fit? What happens next?
Then you find another coach. We pass off people between us. It happens. Walter and I share people all the time. Some of it because the person's more comfortable with somebody else. Some of it is just because he has a different experience than I do, and back and forth. So it's not a one and done. You're not stuck.
Yeah, and feel free to. I mean, if when you join in there and it's just not a good fit, I know you're not going to offend any of the coaches. And quite honestly, I'm sure they also will make recommendations to work with another coach depending on what you are looking for. The next question is coming in. How did US Bank narrow down the 15 goals topics? It's a great question. Actually, I'm going to go back to it. Now it's 18 questions to the person that asked. I have to update this with 3 more boxes.
Yeah. We thought about that from day one, right, Jill? When we first walked into training, we're like, how do they come up with these amazing like goals and benchmarks, if you will, to go after? Will, from what I gather is, before the program itself, going back to Q4, the beginning of Q4 in 2019, rolled out to the masses here in the Valley, the amazing team behind the scenes back at the corporate office in Minneapolis, actually, when it was a beta approach to it, went out and surveyed and landscaped here locally within the Valley. If you were to sit down with a Jill or with a Walt, what would you want to discuss? And these were majority of the popular, the 18, 15 at the time and 18 now were the popular goals that the individuals asked would want to sit down and talk to a coach about.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know with all of these too, they're very broad. So there's a lot of things that can fit into each individual goal. Looks like we've gone through all the questions. Again, I want to invite anyone that has any questions, please ask them as we kind of go ahead and work through the rest of this. I wanted to show the last slide because even though there's 4 goals coaches at the chamber, these are our resident goals coaches. You'll see them at almost every event that we do, both in person and virtual. At every level of membership as well, they'll show up. But additionally, there's an entire team of goals coaches, and here are the rest of them. So we have 4 at the Vegas Chamber, and then you've got the rest of the goals coaches that work at the various locations here at US Bank. Again, if you take out your phone and you go into your camera and hover over the QR code, that'll take you exactly to that landing page. And I'm not seeing any other questions come in, Walt and Jill. So with that, I do want to close this out. Jill, let's start with you. Any parting thoughts, anything you want the chamber members to know before we go?
Just that we are here, we're virtual, and we're ready to go.
Thanks, Jill. Walt?
I would definitely echo that, and let's definitely carve out some time together, whether it's with myself or the 6 other amazing colleagues that you see right here on the page, and let's discover your why. Let's rekindle that fire, that excitement the night before your ribbon cutting ceremony of opening your brick and mortar location, and how excited you felt that day. Let's bring that back.
Thank you, Walt. Rob, take us home.
Yeah, and all I have to say is I absolutely echo what my peers and colleagues have said today. I want to thank everyone for the time, and and life is way too short to not go after your dreams and what you want out of it. So let's connect, because there's really no better time to invest in yourself than now. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. I want to say thank you to the chamber members that joined us this morning. I really appreciate your time. This is one of many roundtables that we'll do, and I'm sure we'll evolve in the future as we kind of maybe tackle some of the topics that are upcoming, and even when we get back into in-person, events, which is just right around the corner on a larger scale. So with that, thank you so much for joining us today, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.